Hello everyone, Tech Talk time. Nice to see you. Nice. Hopefully you are doing good. Yeah, basically today we're going to be doing the Tech Talk to start with, which is the kind of weekly podcast. We go through all the comments of the last Tech Talk, then kind of move from there. That's the general idea. It works pretty well while playing some War Thunder in the background. This week's been kind of fun. You know, obviously the update came out, so been playing some different stuff, but unfortunately Stalker 2 came out this week as well, so I have been putting a lot of time into that too, and we'll be splitting time basically the next few weeks because of that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The way that the Tech Talk works is it's kind of like a podcast format where we go through a bunch of the different stuff, which has gone on in the week and also has been kind of like going on in War Thunder news, but also we go through your questions through the comments or just the general comments. So if you have any of them, or if you have any thoughts or feelings that you want to put through, then make sure to stick them in the comments of the video. We do also live stream them, so on Twitch and YouTube. So if you want to ask questions while we're streaming, you can do that too, and I can fit them in. So it works pretty well. Like overall, it's quite a nice setup. Like I'm happy with it so far. We've done over a year of these, and I think it's very important to do them because of the fact that it gives people access to some thoughts. Hey Ned Thomas, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Never Thunder. Hopefully you're doing good. This is an ad at the top of the screen, just for world's #1 tactical hoodie. Just in case you need your hoodies to be tactical. You know, you need to be ready for action, ready to go. So that's basically how it goes. But yeah, so we're gonna have a look through the Tech Talk comments, and then we're gonna kind of go from there. We have one first of all from Maxwell. So Maxwell did timestamps, which is very kind of him. Thank you to everybody who does the timestamps. It is something that I've started doing in all of my other videos, but for the Tech Talks, as we've talked about before, it's a loss leader, so it doesn't really make any sense to do so. Nice to see you, Pinch, sir. Hopefully you're doing good. But yeah, so let's get into some thoughts. Stalker 2 has been pretty good, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Then we have a comment from Rodolfo Hernandez. There you go. Gaijin should add ray tracing in another small update. I can almost think that the update is already. Ray tracing wasn't the only issue with this update coming in, which is kind of nuts. Like this update, if you played it on the dev server, I know like people focused on the ray tracing because that was like the big thing that they added. That they did a lot of marketing around and stuff, but there was a ton of bugs, and some of them got to the live server, like not being able to use countermeasures while going supersonic. Not being able to use weapon systems while going supersonic. That was also another thing that was going on. Not being able to, not being able to hear engines or, anything like that. That was also something that turned up in terms of the live update. So imagine if they didn't do that extra update and they'd done like they just released the game. It would have been an absolute mess. Because of all those like facts, and it really was like there's even right now, like with a bunch of like days already gone, there is a bunch of graphical problems, but also a bunch of audio stuff and a bunch of just map stuff which is busted, and it's one of those things that sucks quite a lot in terms of it, because you never want to see stuff broken. And I saw a comment from a guy on the forums, and he was talking about how they should just release the update anyway. We know it's going to be buggy, we know it's going to be broken, it doesn't matter. And it's like, you have no idea the effect of releasing a broken product does on people who want to play things. Like for me, when the update came out, on, what day was it? Tuesday, right? I booted up the game to do like my dailies because Stalker came out on the Wednesday, so we played a bit on that day, Or maybe it was Stalker came out on the Wednesday and the update came out on the Wednesday. But I played a bit of War Thunder in the morning and I was just like, this game doesn't work. Like, my frame rate was all over the place. I couldn't balance out my graphics. I couldn't like fix anything in the game. My audio was all over the place. Like, everything was busted. And that didn't want me to play the game. So I literally hardly played it at all. I basically just logged on and did my dailies for the next few days, while also, you know, playing Stalker, which, to be honest, I know a lot of people have been talking about the bugs in Stalker and stuff, but I haven't really ran into a lot of them. There's a few of them which I can understand why people are annoyed at Stalker 2, especially some of the design decisions, like the world not being fully, you know, homogenous right now, and also a lot of the units just like not moving around. But from an actual gameplay point of view, it's worked pretty well for me, apart from like the economy stuff, which has been a bit of a pain. So with that, it's been a much more fun experience than it was in War Thunder, where I had to basically test the game like 2 or 3 or 4 days and work out how or why like my graphics card was doing what it was doing. And I'm still having issues now. Like, I still get crashes with War Thunder where my video card hangs, which it just shouldn't be doing, right? Hey, Rusty Sniper, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Dino, Team Kron, and also Leviathan. That's very kind of you. Thank you for the kind words. So yeah, like, it isn't just a ray tracing thing. It's just there was a bunch of other bugs at the same time, but people were focusing on the ray tracing thing, which is what happens, and which is why dev servers for me are a double-edged sword, right? So dev servers are great for marketing, okay? Because the company can go, hey, look at all this cool stuff. Yeah, isn't this awesome? Nice. You guys get to look at it. You guys get to test it. The testing part of it has never been good. And that's because you don't get anything for testing stuff. So the micro amount of people who do actually test things are gonna miss stuff. And that's what happens all the time with the dev server, with all of these different things. So it's one of those where whenever an update's gonna come out, you're gonna have problems. But if you have an update which straight up breaks the game, then that's going to put so many people off of it, and they're going to have a negative experience, and they're not going to want to play. Because, like, I don't want to be a beta tester. I don't want to do this. I'm not getting paid to be a beta tester. I'm not going to volunteer my time on a product that doesn't work. Because there's too many products in the world now that do work, and there's too many products that don't, that I'm never going to touch because of that. Hey, Black Ivy, nice to see you. Thank you for the subscription, Anthony. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. But yeah, ray tracing was a problem. It's still a problem on the live server. It's taking up way too much power to do, even on insanely high-end machines. But for me personally, the simple fact is there was a bunch of other stuff that was busted as well. If it was just a ray tracing issue, then they would have, you know, released the update and fixed that. Because guess what? They've released the update and the ray tracing is still an issue, so they're gonna fix it as it goes on. So yeah, it's how it is. Good. But hopefully everything's good, Anthony. Hopefully you're doing well. So we have Frank Bradley. Good old Bradders. Just shoot this. We're just doing a special for mass destruction, which is one of the super easy chill ones to do. So, yeah. What is good, Tech? Everything's good. This week has been pretty nice. It's been good to just kind of play games. This week I did a lot of just random playing games last week, which was fantastic. Completing like the Stronghold campaign, because they released the definitive edition in 2023. And I ended up playing through the main campaign again. I'd never actually completed the main campaign. I got to like one of the missions, which is literally the hardest mission in the campaign. It's right in the middle. It's where you have to assault or siege a castle, which is owned by the pig. And it's, as like a kid, I just never got past that mission, and I got frustrated, and I just stopped playing it, right? which, you know, is probably not the healthiest thing to do. I also did that in Medal of Honor Front Line, where there was a submarine mission. I think it was like the second or third mission in the game, and you had to like sneak around a submarine that you'd got on, and then you had to like go through it. And I straight up just couldn't do that mission, and I have no idea why. And then I went back to it like a year later, and then I was able to do it. So there you go, always fun. But yeah, it was really cool playing that. Been watching a lot of sports over like the last period of time. The Rugby internationals have been going on, like the autumn internationals, which has been kind of cool. Hey, Apocalucifer, nice to see you. I see you too, Leggy Super. Also RHC. Hopefully everything's good. They do RHC, yes. So basically, when it comes to the rugby, it's been really nice to watch. There's been a lot of very good games, and I'm glad that they're giving. I'm glad that they're giving people or different teams access to stuff. Like the fact that the Autumn Internationals has expanded from like 6 teams to like, I don't even know how many it is, like 10, 15, 20. It feels like more of a competition, like a kind of a, it basically feels like a World Cup. Like that's how it was, right? Which is kind of nuts. I found that it's extremely difficult to ask my TV Maverick to track and lock my opponent. I lost a lot of chances to a bug of that. Oh yeah, so if you're trying to use Mavericks right now, they have a bunch of bugs attached to them. So if you're not hitting stuff with it, it's not your fault. it's straight up the Maverick not performing well. So just wait for a little bit and hopefully they'll fix it. So yeah, it's basically how it's going. But no, this week I played a bunch of Stalker 2. I'm about 20 hours into it. I'm going to play more on Monday and also later on in the week. So we're going to split our time between like Stalker 2 and War Thunder. Stalker 2 has been really fun. Generally, the gunplay feels amazing. The general story is kind of dull, but in 20 hours in, nothing's really happened with the story. I'm kind of in the same point. A lot of the side stories and learning about the factions has been pretty cool, especially with the stuff that they've done with the Monolith, especially since in the other games, which I played like over the last month, the Monolith stuff was just like, it didn't, I don't know, it just wasn't explained at all. But now, like, they actually kind of go through what they're about and what's going on with them, which is really nice. The other part of it is, you know, roaming around the world is really fun. That I do have a few issues myself with it. The economy stuff, and I think the economy stuff is bugged. So in Clear Skies, which is the second game of the Stalker series, I honestly believe most people don't like that game. Not just because of the bugs, because all of the Stalker games have game-breaking bugs, but it's the fact that the economy is terrible, and the fact that you have areas of the game which are continuously being attacked, and therefore you get bled of resources, like over and over and over again, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it just leaves you in a really negative position, and unfortunately this game does that too, in certain areas where it just spawns enemies on top of you, and the enemies don't have any things to them. Like there's certain areas where like it'll literally spawn soldiers on top of you and they don't exist technically. So when you go up to loot them, you don't get anything from them, but then they kill you because even though they don't exist, they do damage to you, and it's really annoying. So the difficulty is high, but it's because the difficulty is not high because the gunplay is hard or because you get hit by a truck. The gameplay is hard for 3 reasons. Number 1, the length of time between traders and between technicians is really long in certain areas that I've run into so far. Remember what I was saying about crashes? The other one. My game just crashed. The other one, which they've also done, is, as I said, you don't get value for your stuff. So you get a really small amount of money compared to what an item is worth. But I honestly think that's a bug because somebody Strada, who is Alex's brother, he actually showed me a video of a guy where he opened up the trader, he put his like weapon in the slot to sell, right? To the trader, and then he right clicked and then hovered to remove, but didn't remove it, and then it was going to sell at the right price. So I honestly think that's just a bug. And then the other one is just how expensive things are. In Clear Sky, they screwed up the economy by creating this relationship system where you had to basically gain relationship with different factions in order for them to give you good deals. But it was a way of elongating the game, and it was crap. And in this game, there isn't that system, but the prices are all wrong. So yeah, it's definitely a hardcore survival game right now. But I think that's just because of a few bugs, which is kind of funny. But yeah, since Gaijin is doing 3 squadron vehicles per update now, what 3 vehicles do you want to be squadron vehicles for the next update? For me, it's a ship for America, since they're the best navy in the world, and they are the one of the 2 OG naval countries in the game, and they don't have one yet. Germany and USSR were released before America in naval. Isn't that crazy? A unique Mirage variant or prototype for France, the CV9040 squadron vehicle that they have isn't even French. And lastly, an Italian tank, since Italy doesn't even have a single SV yet. Yeah, I'd be fine with like an OF40, as a squadron vehicle. There's a few special OF40s they could add, which were there's a few OF40s, like one-off OF40s they could add for Italy. I don't think, right, so we've got to be a bit careful here in terms of thoughts. There is no way that Gaijin is gonna do 3 squadron vehicles per update going forward, because that's 15 squadron vehicles a year, right? And the capacity to research these is way less than what we've seen previously. So, for example, I haven't even researched one of the vehicles from the last update. And I started that last update with having all of the squadron vehicles researched, and getting 20k every 3 days. So I would be very surprised if they continue to add 3 squadron vehicles per update, unless they change the research system around the squadron vehicles, which I don't think they're going to do. You have to remember, we had a huge drought of squadron vehicles for the longest time, and the drought basically meant that a lot of people went off, like joining squadrons and doing that stuff. But one of the things you also have to look at in the roadmap is they're adding in more kind of social options for squadrons, for people to join them or for people to move them around. So it'd be interesting to see if they're adding these squadron vehicles into the game in tandem with that. So therefore people can get more interested into squadron stuff again, right? Like that's at least the way that I'm thinking it in my head. Because this should not be seen as a standard. This should be seen as an anomaly, because it is. So yeah. Yeah, the other thing is World War Mode. We obviously had a leak of the Iran-Iraq stuff. Since World War Mode is heavily squad-based, I wonder if they're going to add something into World War Mode where you can research squadron vehicles or get a bonus to researching squadron vehicles or something. Like that's another thing that they might do. In terms of like squadron vehicles, I think the way that they've been doing them is fine. Generally, I would prefer some more lower tier squadron vehicles. I think, in general, rank 3s and rank 4s should be targeted, in terms of just weird and wacky vehicles, but also things to help people grind through the tech trees. I don't like these top tier, high tier squadron vehicles, especially in ground and especially in naval, because it leads to some very unfortunate tactics where people just use that and that's it, and they just get hammered, get annoyed, and then don't want to play anymore. Or it's a negative for the team since people don't have full lineups. It's the same with like premiums, right? I don't like the fact that people can just go out and buy a very high tier premium and then basically just play in the top tier matchmaker and make it all loosey goosey and crazy, right? So yeah, it's one of those things which I honestly feel like needs to be refocused around mid to low tier, and all those vehicles that they used to use or they used to do, which were like those mid tier event vehicles, even if they copy paste stuff, just make those squadron vehicles and bolster mid tier lineups, you know, or you could do prototypes, or as I said, like I've always liked the idea of, okay, I've mastered this vehicle here. If I do a bunch of challenges with this vehicle that I've already, like, let's say modified, I get an extra camo for it. And then maybe, what about if you've done that, maybe you get access to another set of challenges, and then you can unlock like a special version of that vehicle, which is just that vehicle, but it has access to I don't know, like it has access to, as I said, like a unique camo or something like that. You don't need to do anything too crazy for these things. You can do very simple things, and people will grind them out, and people will play them. I don't think that most people need constantly new stuff all the time to get them interested in mechanics or invisible buildings. Or get them like interested in mechanics or like doing stuff like that. Like you can just do it the other way, right? Like the other way works as well. So we have D. Austin Vaughn. Three simple questions for TEC. Apologies if they're over asked. That's fine. You get used to it. Will we see Submarines as an actual branch of War Thunder by the end of this year? Highly doubt it. There's a lot of things that would have to come in first, and when it comes to stuff like Submarines, the way that it looks to me is they would add one or two to start with to test out the mechanics, and then from there they would make decisions. So I don't think it's something that would all come in at once. Especially right now. Like if during like Christmas updates, sometimes you get like one or two different vehicles to kind of set up the next year, right? So maybe something like that could happen. But no, I would be very surprised if it was this year. I know they've added stuff into the files, but it's stuff that we've seen previously. When will we see the next gen of aircraft? Presumably the F-18 and such. I really dislike generations of aircraft. I think the idea of them is stupid, because everyone has different definitions of what generation of aircraft means. If you mean like the next stage in terms of like technology or stuff, literally the next update, because every update we get some kind of addition. This year, active radar homing missiles came in. This year, glide bombs came in. This year, more different types of ground ordnance to hit things came in. You know, we had more anti-ship missiles added to the game. Basically, you just have constant, you know, additions in that setup. Like, and if you have a look at the last update, you got the Tornado GR4, which is basically the last Tornado they can finally add, thank God, for Britain. And then you have, yeah, Stealth technically came in as well. And then you have the F-15E, which is, you know, the Strike Eagle, the incredibly powerful destroyer of all worlds. You got the Su-34, the Duck, which, you know, is once again a very modern vehicle. So, if you're just talking about the F-18 specifically, like, it could probably fit in the game now, and it would be fine. So, like, the vehicles like that, it's more about what weaponry they give them anyway, right? So if they decide to just give it the weaponry that's already in the game, then everything's fine. Like it won't change anything. It won't move anything around, so you don't have to worry about it. It could easily be next update. It could have been this update, you know. Like that's just kind of how it is. Hey Trackballer, nice to see you. Thank you for the kind words. And how long would you guess we have to wait for Chinese or Swedish Naval? Well, BVD actually talked about Chinese naval on a Chinese kind of like Q&A panel he had. I think in general, he talked about the fact that there isn't a ton of stuff that would actually be interesting for people to play. And filling out the trees is a little bit of a problem for China, which is probably why they're looking to add other nations to them. Swedish naval will be the same. The main issue you're running into also with naval is one of the least played game modes, and the amount of money that is put into building those models and pushing them out is really high, right? And you've got to look at return of investment. You got to look at return of all of these things. Is it worth them actually setting it up, right? How many people are going to play Chinese naval, and how many people are going to play Swedish naval? Because they just added France with their blue water and coastal stuff. And if you have a look at the number of people who have ground stuff like that out, if you have a look at like achievements, or if you even ask and you go around, it's an incredibly small amount. So that's the problem you have there. It's kind of like the simulator stuff again. Like you can go through it, you can chat about it and work out like what you want to do and what's there and what's not there. But in terms of like actual raw player money output, it's tiny. So these things will get developed, but they'll take a long time, or there'll be a bunch of copy paste, just like a lot of the French stuff is, in terms of the game and also in terms of the coastal stuff, or it'll be anemic because once again the return on investment. You have to figure out a way of getting people interested in stuff like that first, and then stuff can get thrown in. It's like the Israeli naval stuff, right? Which would make absolutely no sense. But yeah. If you play Coastal right now, most real people are playing French Coastal. Remember, French Coastal came out 3 days ago officially. Yeah. But look at it like this, right? As you said, it just came out officially for everybody. But the main thing to think about is if you have everybody playing French Coastal, but also at the same time, that pool of players is minute compared to everything else, then it's still a very small amount of people who are playing French Coastal. Right? And if that's the whole player base, if that's the total amount of people that you have in order to like push Coastal or do anything like that, it's not enough, right? So yeah. It's development cost to return on investment. And if it's there, they'll do it. If it isn't, then they might still do it and hope that it works. But what are you going to do, right? Like if you have a look at the French Blue Water tree, they threw in so many premiums to try and get people to play it. Like, and they even removed a bunch of premiums. Like literally after they were in the game for a very small amount of time. And there's another tech tree that they do that with, if you've noticed, and that is of course the Italian tech tree with stuff like the T129 and many others. And the reason they remove them is because nobody's buying them. So therefore they want to take them out, make them FOMO pieces to try and get it so people will buy the damn thing. So yeah, imagine that, but in a tech tree that even less people are going to care about. It's a tough one, right? So in terms of those things, like if you have a look at Naval in general in War Thunder, like I can't remember when Naval got released. Was it like 2016, 17, 18? They've been averaging like 1 or 2 tech trees pretty much every year. So if you want to have a look at that, then then that's the way to see it. But also the production of it is slowed right down because there's just not enough people who care about these things. Like how many people do you honestly think cares greatly and would play through a Swedish coastal or a blue water tech tree? For China, you have a massive player base, and you also have a decent amount of it being enjoying, China and also everything that it has in its history, right? Because you have the whole Chinese bloc, and you have a lot of other people around it who enjoy the vehicles. So the issue with them is the copy and paste or just not having enough. And the fact that BVVD on a Chinese broadcast, while being asked questions in a live stream from Chinese presenters, goes, yeah, it's not going to be great, is it? Surely that's the perfect opportunity to give false hope and to be like, yeah, we're thinking about it, we're looking into it, you know, we're gonna see what we can do with it and all this stuff. But instead, he was brutally honest about it, and that has to be understood, because that's not a time to be brutally honest about those things if you're trying to do the PR game, and if there is even a sniff of chance on these things. So yeah, that's the thing. Thank you for the subscription, Coffee Can. Thank you for supporting the channel. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Hey, General Kenobi, nice to see you. Do you think Xbox will ever get vapor trails and hit analysis? Yeah, of course. I'm sure they're trying to work on adding them right now. What steps do you think can work for interest improvement? What do you mean for like Swedish ships and Chinese ships? I have no idea, because it's out of my wheelhouse. But what I don't see right now is I don't see people caring about it. So you could do like the standard tactics, like advertisement, people making posts, people, you know, promoting books, movies, TV shows, you know, trying to get people from that end of the world on like the nationalism arc of things. Like you could try and do all of those things. Like, you know, what do I think of the new jets? They look very pretty. So yeah, that's basically what you can do, but there's really not a ton. Then we have Maxwell. As a ground player, I just got my hands on the Dora. I absolutely suck at bombing tanks in Ground AB, but it's still fun. After rewatching some of War Thunder's official videos on planes like the B-25 and things like that, I've started to think about grounding planes too. If I end up doing so, I have 3 nations in mind. US, of course, Germany, and maybe Italy. Planes seem to be the peak of engineering, and it's very exciting to learn about them. Do you have any tips about planes in War Thunder, either for the Dora itself or in general? I've already grinded out some German ones, by the way, but not much. I have the F4 and the Focke-Wulf 190 A4, and a low-tier Italian and Soviet planes like 3 and such. So in the beginner guides to War Thunder that I have a playlist on YouTube. The beginner guides to War Thunder. There's some videos in there, and some of them are pretty old, like they're maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. But the meta in War Thunder hasn't really changed in terms of kind of like grinding through tech trees for aviation and how to play them. The only thing that's changed is top tier, right? So if you're looking for tips, those videos, I basically like show games, how I approach them, what I'm looking for, what I'm moving through, where people go, how to climb, where to set, all of this stuff, right? So yeah, you can check those out. Oh yeah, sorry, wrong comment window, my bad. I missed one. There you go. So that's basically that. With the Dora itself, the Dora got nerfed in terms of how the game's played. The game got a lot quicker because they added more ground targets and they added more strike aircraft and they added more people who wanted to just play ground. So they hit ground targets like I'm doing here for the special, and then they, you know, move on and do something else. So this quickened up a lot of the battles, basically meant games went quicker. They also lowered the time limit of it. So the Dora's lost a lot of value because of that. But basically the way that you play the Dora has been the same forever. You take off, you climb to 4,000, 5,000, you wait until people are below you, you dive on them, you hit them, you go back up, you keep doing that over and over again. Use the engine to be able to distance yourself and then re-engage and then bang bang. That's pretty much how you do it. It's how you did it in 2013, it's how you do it now. If anything, it's a bit easier now because it's lower BR, and also they made the elevator a lot better, so you can reset a lot easier. There's not really another way of like setting it up in terms of doing it. But yeah, that's literally it. I don't know how else to put it. With planes, I would say Staying alive and picking when you engage an enemy is easily the most important part of air combat. So trying to feed off teammates in a way of seeing if a teammate is being engaged, try and pull them to you, so therefore you can create 2-on-1s. Try and position yourself so you can basically, like jump on people who are attacking your teammates. That's always the way to do it, and it's the way to set it up properly. There's no other way of doing it which is as efficient as that. That's pretty much how to do it. Hey, well, look, Shaggy, nice to see you. Plans for the stream? We're doing the tech talk first, and then we are going to do the looks. So the looks should be quite good. Is Gaijin working on a roadmap for 2025? My guess would be yes, but I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything, but usually we're here in January, right? I hope they do. I think it's really cool to see these roadmaps. I think it's nice to cogitate. It's nice to go around and do them. I think they're quite a nice little topic. It's just about fulfilling the goals, right? Like that's the major problem with stuff like that. But then we did miss one. Here we go. So here's Tripod. Dear TEC, yours sincerely. Do you have any additional insight into why some bug reports seem to take forever to be actioned? It's been 4 years, Morty. It's been 4 going on 5 major updates now, and even if they're quite significant, it would somewhat address balance issues. For example, those that have to do with the FIM 92. Check forum bug portal for more info, since I can't directly link the reports on YouTube. Photo contrast mode, maneuverability, lock on range. And should they be overhauled? How do you think it would impact the existing IR SAM balancing, let alone those nations that are stuck with manpads at high BRs like Israel and formerly Italy? The bug reporting systems can never be perfect, because it's a middleman system, and middleman systems are designed to obfuscate and to make people money or time or power in the center. And if you have the wrong people in those positions in the middle, then it creates a black hole, which is just awful to deal with, and it's very annoying when it happens. So that's something that happens in pretty much every community. If you run into the wrong person while you're trying to do bug reporting or trying to do, something in War Thunder, whether it is something as simple as like get a suggestion passed or try and get some comments out or try and ask specific questions, if you run into somebody who's having a bad day or just somebody who's just terrible at doing it and has just got into that position because nobody else wants to do it, which is unfortunately a part of moderation, especially in these like kind of large communities, then you'll have just a horrid time dealing with it. So that's just a standard across the board. There's nothing you can do about that. That's just how this goes, right? Like you're not going to be able to get around that, right? Hey Goatee, nice to see you. So if that happens, don't be surprised. Is basically what I'm saying. That will be something that will happen, but there's nothing you can do to control it, right? So you just got to deal with it. It's part of the online space. It's just part of human existence. When people don't want to deal with something, they put a bunch of people in your way so you can't get to that person to deal with it, and getting around it is just a pain. Anybody who's had to deal with any government systems or had to deal with anything like that understands this problem, and it's an absolute pain. And it's just designed for obfuscation, so therefore people can't be blamed for specific decisions made. That's the same reason where if you go to the bug report forum right now, what has actually happened is they've removed people's names and actually given them generic names because they don't want people to be held accountable, and by held accountable, they use the term harassed. So, yeah, it's just kind of how it goes. That's what happens. People just become anonymized, and so therefore they can't be held accountable for their actions. So when it comes to the next part, the balance issue thing. So they already talked about the IR missiles and how they keep them all to the same standards because that's the information that they have access to. And since they don't have access to other information, you know, from a point of view that is open to the public, then they have to use that information for everything else, right? Now, this has holes in the logic, but there isn't another way of doing it. Like there's nothing that can be done about it apart from if people leak classified information, which Gaijin also can't use because of the fact that it's classified information. So that one is a bit all over the place. The next part, which is the whole balance thing, there have been certain times in War Thunder's history where Gaijin has not made changes to specific mechanics which would make them more realistic because it would make them overpowered, right? Why exactly is accountability a bad thing? My ex hated it just as much. Accountability is a very good thing, but as I have found when it comes to the internet and many other people have found, it isn't about being held accountable for your actions. It's about people going after you. So I'll give you an example, right? So back in the day, and even today, there are some opinions about things that I say that people really get riled up about. And it's usually to do with like business models, it's usually to do with like monetization, it's usually to do with like stuff which they don't like. And I basically talk about why it happens or what causes it, and then, you know, my opinion on whether it needs to be or whether it needs to be pushed around or whatever it is, right? So back in the day, there has been several people who have tried to find out about my personal life. There's been several people who've tried to go after family members that I have, and also have contacted my work to basically find out more information about me personally, so therefore they could go after me more. And we're talking about opinions about a video game, right? So that has happened to me personally over previous years. Now, was any of that warranted? Was any of that needed? Of course not. Right? Because it's literally opinions about a video game. So imagine, right? So in my position, I can completely understand why they want to put a barrier between these things. Because I've had to deal with the crazy people who don't just try and hold people accountable, they try and go after people and make their lives a living hell. We've had many circumstances in different countries. There was a few in Canada recently, there's been a few in England, there's been a few in America, where people do not know when to stop when it comes to harassment, and they don't understand where the line is. And they see it as a personal goal for them to destroy somebody else's life over the most innocuous things in the world. Right? So I completely understand why they want to put these levels in there. Like even before these levels existed, for the members, right? Like for there's specific guys on that team who are horrific at what they do in their job. It's a volunteer position. They're very bad at it, okay? And one of them, which I will not name, was infamous for stopping or refusing or rejecting specific bug reports in favor of others, even though they had the same criteria. They were just from a different place or a different country. What happened with that guy, because he was so bad at what he does, and is still part of the team, by the way, just to let you know, what they ended up doing is finding out his Steam account, finding out his real name, finding out his interests, and going after him. And basically harassing him, not through like the War Thunder platform or anything like that, but from third-party exterior places, because he was so crap at what he was doing. Right? They found out what groups he was in when it came to like online stuff. They started just sending him a ton of messages, sending other people a ton of messages saying, why do you associate with this person? He does this. And it's all over rejecting bug reports in a video game. Right? It's nuts. Like when you sit down and think about it, it's crazy. Right? Because no standard person would turn around and go, oh yeah, that sounds fine. Yeah, that sounds good. Most people are horrified when they hear stuff like that. But it's what happens. Right? It's what goes on in these spaces. And the issue in general with life is the fact that you have to make sure that you account for the crazies. And that's why most laws exist. They exist to stop the 0.2% of people doing dumb stuff, right? And it sucks that that's how the world has to work. But the opposite is the lunatics run the asylum, right? And that's just how it is. That happened to me, by the way. Someone accused me of being a P-word, and now I'm targeted despite me never doing anything. There's that, yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of weird shit that's there's all sorts of weird shit that I've had to deal with over the years. Like I've even brought some of it up on stream, like people going after, as I said, like going after the missus, going after family members, going after all of this stuff, like nothing to do with anything like that I do over here. But yeah, it's the reason why it's incredibly important to have a public and private setup. But at the end of the day, you know, it's just annoying. Now, back to the point. So one of the reasons why they may not acknowledge or accept a bug report is because it may have already been put through. The other reason might be because they don't agree that the thing needs to be fixed at that time. Maybe it's already been passed to the devs, and what they want to do is they don't want to add it in because it's going to come in a future update, or maybe they're working on, this is another thing, maybe they're working on another system which is being added to the game, which means that that system will replace whatever the bug is, which is another thing that happens quite a lot in terms of like these kind of bug reports. So even if something hasn't been acknowledged, it may have been acknowledged before, or the relevant people do know it exists, right? There are millions of reasons why something might not go forward. But the balance one, if people are straight up trying to put bug reports through based on like just balance stuff, or trying to get stuff passed to balance out a mechanic, then that's, from the dev's point of view, right now, it's balanced because of where it is statistically in the game, right? So if you turn around and go, nah, it's not balanced, here, we're going to introduce something that balances it, it's just going to go up in BR anyway. So it won't balance it to what you want it to balance to. So it's just, yeah, it's a bit of a mess at the end of the day. It's one of those that's really, really tough to deal with, really tough to go through. But what I would generally say is, don't worry about it too much. Eventually, as long as patience is found, it will happen. Hey Studio, nice to see you. A person has too much free time? People. Like, we're not talking about individuals here. There was, oh, you want to hear a funny story? Criparian. Do any of you know who Criparian is? He's a guy who got famous from doing a bunch of world records, I believe, was in Diablo or Path of Exile. And now he streams Hearthstone. And is somebody I used to put on basically just like while I was chilling before bed. And just, you know, kind of relaxing. That was like my chill time before I did like the workout stuff again. And he, a few years ago, uncovered something ridiculous that was happening. So he was playing Hearthstone, right? And that's the card game, the CCG, and he plays it now. There was a Discord that was set up specifically to stream snipe him. And there was a bunch of people who ran a bunch of alt accounts, and they would all sit in this Discord together, and they would work out precisely how much his stream delay was. They would literally line up. This was when he was playing that game mode where you picked your like deck out of like an RNG list of decks. I can't remember what it was called. Arena, that was it. So they lined up people to queue up every 2 to 5 seconds while he was playing, depending on what the delay was. So therefore, he had to run into a stream sniper, and then at the same time, what they did was they would be discussing what they should do, what they should push forward with, and all of these different things based on what his deck had, while also using additional software to work out the percentages of each place. So that's just a guy playing a card game on a stream, right? And Crip is not like an evil dude, or like he's not a person who's like pissed anybody off in the past, right? He's literally just a guy who plays Hearthstone and plays like, Path of Exile. He plays like dungeon crawlers, right? So he had that much of a small, like, dedicated community, which had, like, I think 300 people in it, which did this. Which made his streaming experience, and just, like, personal experience, awful. Right? And that's because in the online space, you remove that interpersonal setup, right? Which is why it's super dangerous. Like, it's crazy to think about. Hey, Anti-Griefer, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Stiglitz. Hopefully you're doing good. So we have Jerry. The change that I dislike the most from the update is that the new player card. I understand that it's unfinished, but I still prefer the old layout way more. It would be nice if they could give us an option to revert, at least until they finish it more. It also doesn't seem like I'm the only one who doesn't like this, as I saw a lot of people complaining about this on the forums. Also, since that Gaijin added messages when we dodge missiles in planes, we should also get rewards for dodging missiles instead of just the message. I'm pretty sure they're gonna do that, because they took away the kind of defensive score that you would get. Because, you would get a proximity score if you were near enemies, and it was kind of seen as like a way that you would be defending against them, and that's how you got like money and stuff in the game from playing defensively. But unfortunately, people abuse that because people abuse anything. So yeah, I think they're trying to find a way of making it so people can still get research and SL even if they're from defensive maneuvers, and this would be one of those ways. I think it's cool. Like I hope they. It's nice to see that it isn't just offensive maneuvers that are being targeted, because as we know, in terms of War Thunder, it's a two setup, two battle setup, right? Sometimes you do have those games in air where your team just gets slaughtered, and you're just kind of sat there like, well, what am I gonna do? And you don't really get anything from it anymore, so you might as well just give up, right? So with the changes that they're doing, it looks like they're actually making it worthwhile to kind of survive, which is good. So overall, I think that's quite nice. The player card thing, I talked about it in a video. Was it like earlier this week? It was either earlier this week or last week. I'm very disappointed in it. I think it was called like Half Baked Stuff or something. I was very disappointed in it because of the simple fact that it's just not good, is it? Like it's just not something because they removed information. Okay? Now, removing information from something that already exists is something you can never do. Because people like tie stuff to that information, and now they can't see that information anymore, and they need to go somewhere else to find that information. It's kind of like the Destiny stuff, right? Like when Destiny first came out, they had like the campaign where Peter Dinklage phoned it in like completely in terms of his voice acting, and it was just a dull campaign. And then if you actually wanted to know the story or wanted to know what was going on, you had to go and read like this website to see all of kind of like the encyclopedia of the world, and nobody's going to do that. Like that, nobody's going to do that. They're just going to sit there and go, "This is crap," because it is crap, right? Because you haven't taught them anything, you haven't told them anything, and you've got this dude who's just, not doing a great job voice acting. So what ends up happening is players don't feel fulfilled from like the story of whatever you're looking at. And that's exactly what's going on with the new profile, where there was information in the old profile that is no longer here in the new profile. Now that information will eventually come here, right? It'll eventually turn up in the game. But it's not there right now, so of course people are going to get annoyed. For me, they should have... There are certain mechanics in the game which are building mechanics. So you add them in kind of as like a skeleton, and then you build on top of it. Radar is one of these. RWI is one of these. Even like missiles in general were one of these. And, countermeasures, right? So it's okay to have mechanics that build over time and progress over time. Stuff which is just visual stuff is not a build over time thing. Right? Just like how stuff like volumetric armor or volumetric shells can't really be a good build over time thing because it screws with statistics of the stuff that's being played, right? So it's a pain that you have like a bunch of stuff that's just not there on the profile and it's just gone. It's disappeared. It's reduced to atoms. And until maybe the next update, maybe 2 updates, maybe 3 updates, it won't be back. And that's what annoys people, and I completely understand it, because I'm kind of the same way. Why add something in that is so devoid of life? Especially when you had an old system that was full of life. So wait until the new system has life in it. And by life, I mean all of the features that the previous system has. And then add it in. Yeah? Like, I don't know if they felt pressure in terms of adding it into the game. Because they said it was supposed to be out in September, and obviously it hasn't turned up. I don't know if they felt like it needed to come out now, or they needed to kind of show something. But even with like the dev setup, like in terms of what they said that they were gonna do, they actually haven't done that even. So I don't even know if that is the case, right? Like I don't know if that is the problem, or if there are like bugs or stuff that they've run into, why they haven't added the other stuff. But we've also just had no communication on it, so it's impossible to know again. So we'll have to see what kind of goes on. But it just kind of sucks. Would you recommend using the P51 with the 20s or the King Cobra with the 37 for the Wrath of Heaven challenge? Which one's the Wrath of Heaven challenge? I have this weirdest thing to tell you. This man bought a $60 ship in War Thunder and then harassed him for 10 minutes because of his stupid purchase. He then proceeds to give me the $60 Leopard bundle for free. Okay. You shouldn't harass people for the money that they spend. It's their money, not yours. You should actually feel pretty bad about that. Then we have Islam Zayod. Hey Tech, hello. I thought I would have fun in the A5C, but it's not. It's 10.7 now. I can't bomb bases because I'm too slow. Fighters get them before me, and I can't fight because of the bad flight model. If they would lower its BI, it would be better. What do you think? Do you think fighters should be prevented from bombing bases? No, I don't think fighters should be prevented from bombing bases. But what they should do is they should nuke the rewards of it. They should make it. They should, since we're in a situation where they've obviously, with a lot of these premiums, they've made them multi-purpose because people didn't want to, actually fight in them. They just want to turn off their brains and bomb stuff. They need to just remove the rewards. Just make them super small. That's it. Because Otherwise, nothing's ever gonna change. Like you've got to actually, instead of doing all of these like silly changes in terms of what they've been trying to do, like trying to make certain things better in terms of what bombs to take or in terms of what things to do, just stop doing that and just nerf the rewards on them, and then buff the amount of rewards that they get for killing planes. Just make it so if your vehicle is named a fighter, you get more for killing aircraft, and you get nothing for killing ground stuff. There you go. And if you're a strike aircraft, you get middling. If you're a bomber, you get the opposite. Just do that. That would solve this stuff overnight. Would it annoy people? Yes. But no matter what, you're going to annoy people in this situation. Right now, you have a very unbalanced setup. Just a not very fun setup either. Now, the A5C should be fine in an air-to-air combat role because of the magics. So what I would focus on is setup. The setup might be one of the big issues in terms of it. I'm gonna play that BR more recently, so we'll see what goes on with it. There would be no way for fighters to ground pound for tickets if less enemy planes went to space though. No, you could still just hit ground targets. You just wouldn't get any RP and SL for it. You'd still win the game. So technically you'd still want to do it, right? Because you get higher percentage bonuses for doing it. You just wouldn't get the extra SL and RP. Like it's not like you won't do damage to these things, that you don't get the rewards. So we have the only Len. Hey TEC, hello. Snow is still not dropped where I'm at, but at least temps hasn't dropped on -25. We'll wait for that in the next few months. It's been raining here for like 3-4 weeks straight. Like we have a lot of waterlogged areas right now. Which is kind of crazy. Oh, I see, Warlock Shaggy. Yeah, well you just need some of that's rank 3, right? So I would go for I would go for those. I'd go for the P51 because it gets an air spawn. But I'm pretty sure that's rank 2, isn't it? You need a rank 3. That aside, I think I'm actually qualified to be called a War Thunder masochist, having to deal with War Thunder things, you know? Cast here and cast there, BS Russian thing here, non-pen there, and fuel tanks 8 here. Another issue that I've come to accept over the past couple of months, getting flashbanged. Literally War Thunder's rendering bug, you get flashbanged? The one that goes nuclear white, it's been 5 months, I'm having to deal with brawls every game, and getting go random flashbang at my face, and I've gone through the 5 stages of grief with this one as well. 5 months, man, time really goes by quick. I've really been dealing with this shenanigans for that long. I did report it. They said it was a known issue. Good. Yeah, me too. Far too well. What? You get flashbanged in the game? Do other people have this issue? You just get straight flashbanged? I've never heard this before. It's been happening for 5 months? You just get banged? Fuck. That's a thing? God, that sucks if that's the case. Yeah, I've never heard of that. Well, that's awful. Yeah, if they know it's a known issue, hopefully they get it fixed, because that would give me headaches. The other stuff though, like when it comes to like, the gameplay stuff, I would, as always, when it comes to situations, you have to remember the positive and also the negative. So think about all the times where you didn't kill somebody because of a fuel tank or because of something weird, but then think about the times that you survived because of it. So just make sure you don't coat yourself in an air of negativity. Nobody likes the shield of negativity. Like, it doesn't work very well. When it comes to the flashbang stuff though, that's horrific. I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. It's the first I'm hearing about it. But that's really bad. That's really, really poor. Well, that's all, and eventually they'll fix it. I feel like there will be a part of me missing getting flashbanged as a way of life. You just don't get it. Old. Still need to see that second Joker movie, but I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of put off it since everybody's just said it's really bad, so I don't know. We'll see. Have a great weekend as always. Yeah, weekend was great. Next week's going to be fantastic too. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to, actually. A lot of fun games. We're going to be playing not just War Thunder, but also Stalker 2, and we're going to be doing the Indiana Jones game when it comes out, which is quite fun. Hey Sonoran, nice to see you. What do you think about revamping camera requirements? For example, scout tanks, instead of killing 350 enemies, using various modifiers and modes? What about like scout 1200 enemies or something proportionate? Maybe a scout counts for 2 or 3 skin points, or bombers getting skins based upon tons ordnance dropped or something. Yeah, I'd be fine with that. There are some bombers out there that get decals and stuff based on tonnage dropped, and also based on other things like that. So yeah, I think they should do that. The scout stuff, definitely. I think that would be good. Also with AAs, maybe they could give bonuses in terms of if you actually kill a what's the word? If you actually kill a aircraft, maybe you can get like, you know, you can get something like 2 kills instead of 1, or you know, the like air kills are worth more than ground kills, stuff like that. So they could definitely make it so it makes more sense for the specific vehicles that you're playing, instead of the opposite, which it is now. I'd be completely fine with that. Like I think that would be a good idea. Because there are vehicles that are set up in a way where they're obviously designed to do certain things and they don't fit as well, like the Simi, right? So the scimitar. Most of the time nowadays, when I grind out a vehicle, I unlock the camos for it before I finish spading it. But with the scimitar, I didn't, because you know it's a very aggressive scout vehicle first, and then like a killer second. So for me, I think it's important to change up those. I think that's a good idea. But you could do it for most things, right? Like, which would work pretty well. So then we have Kyle Davis for the TEC. The TEC. I'm sure you've received and heard these ideas before, but has anyone ever discussed new mechanics and roles for new existing vehicles? Yeah, usually they have. It's usually one of the main talking points. Military engineering vehicles. With the future addition of ammo boxes and the idea of camo netting, I propose adding these as a support class. Perhaps give the ability to equip 1 or 2 special builds, i.e. ammo boxes, netting bridges, etc., along with the vehicle's natural ability to repair and overturn vehicles more efficiently and faster. I'd also propose more XP for repairs and perhaps grant points or credits for assists when the recipient gets kills for a time. Bridges could be set up in predetermined areas, and interacting would start a building time along rivers and bridges that are destroyed to be crossed. I mean, they can add all these things in as long as the vehicles are able to actually defend themselves with guns. The major problem I've always had with whenever people have talked about bridge laying vehicles or engineering vehicles is the fact that they can't defend themselves, and therefore they're just really obnoxious to have on your team, because you're basically playing with a player down, because you can't kill him. I always bring up when the Type 93 was released. The Type 93 was a vehicle that was added into the game, and it was woefully bad, incredibly poor, very, very bad to play and to have on your team. And when it came out, there was like 2 or 3 or 4 people on your team who were first spawning them, who were wandering around, getting the cap to start with, so therefore the MBTs and the useful vehicles weren't getting any points, and it led to just a horrific situation where you're basically facing another team and you're 4 tanks down. and also you don't have enough spawn points to be able to get into a second tank or, you know, a second setup. So you are massively against, you're massively against like the setup, and it's just a pain. So if you add in these vehicles or if you add in these mechanics, the only thing I would ask is for the vehicles to be able to defend themselves. Like, that's it. I'm not really bothered about anything else. They just need to be able to kill enemy vehicles. If you want to add in all these mechanics like an RTS, like a strategy game, I'm fine with it. But I would also recommend to look at the poll results that they did for the whole building thing, where the reason why ammo boxes got added is because people voted for them. People voted against camo nets and also voted against building emplacements. So forcing these things onto people, especially when the majority of people voted no, might be a really bad idea. For me, I like the mechanics. I think they should be added. I really think they're cool. But you have to listen to the will of the people. Or you have to modify the mechanic and then have another vote and see if they want to bring it in. Because if you go against the will of the people, you just create a firestorm. So yeah. Hey lad, nice to see you. Flashband Man here. I did mention this bug here on Tech Talks when it first came up, and yeah, it happens a long while ago. Oh, that's fair. Well, I probably forgot about it. That's awful, man. That's really, really bad. Like, it's just I can't believe how that can happen. Like, if even on snow maps, if I get too many snow maps in a row in War Thunder, I start getting a headache. So I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine how it feels for you. Then we have armored personnel carriers add the ability to reinforce cap points. No visible models would exist to protect the rating of the game. An APC could stop and deploy X number of troops on a cap point, adding 1 to 2% longer of a cap time per soldier deployed. Caps could be cleared upon capturing the point. Damage done to the capture area done by MGS, HE shells, bombs. The APC player could receive points when an enemy attacks the points as long as their troops are still on the point. Imagine a shield icon next to the spawn number showing reinforcement. Changing on addition and removal of troops additionally cap the amount of 25% or so. I mean, you could. So the major issue I've had with mechanics like this is not the idea of having like AI crew members or AI like soldiers like wander about the place. If they're passive, then I'm fine with them, which is what this sounds like. But the major issue I have is you are giving mechanics to already the strongest vehicles in the game. So light vehicles in War Thunder right now, whether you want to go for the ones which have a very good gun, like around the tiers we're talking about, which is kind of like, what, 8.0 to 12.0, which is generally where this would be set up. You either have light tanks, which are highly mobile with very powerful guns, or you have them with the autocannons, which are still very highly mobile, and usually either have like an A2 gem, or they have like something which makes them really good. So over the last few years, they were given scouting, they're given the airstrike mechanic, which leads to a lot of the CAS issues we've talked about before. A lot of them have LWSs. They usually have very good optics / thermals because of a lot of them being very modern. They have a very good mobility. They have the recon drone, which also got added, which is a insanely powerful mechanic for the game. Straight up just being able to spot anything on the map at any point. If you're working in a squad, or even if you have like a few players which understand what you're doing, like you take over the map. You have so much that you can do already on the map. I don't think they should be given more. I don't think giving more and more powerful mechanics to one set of vehicles is the way to go. If you want to give in this type of mechanic, I would actually say giving it to like SPGs or something like that. I think that's probably the way to go. Like that to me would be better because they don't have a mechanic. They don't have anything which makes them different to anything else. They just have negatives. So, yeah,
why not have something like that? But yeah, if they wanted to add in, like, AI troops wandering about, or a way to kind of defend capture zones, as long as it's not active protection. What I mean by that is that whole stupid thing of, oh, I'm going to plop down like a soldier here and he's going to have an RPG. As long as it's something that is passive, that is more defensive or recon orientated, I'm completely fine with it, right? Like, I would be fine with it. But I don't want it added to the already strongest vehicles in the game. Because they don't need to be stronger. Because they've been made stronger 2 or 3 times over. Even with some of the other mechanics added and the changes to stuff like hull break and other things, even like overpressure, like they've gained so much momentum, like the highly mobile, high firepower light vehicles. Like, it's nuts. Yeah. Why not? We can have a bit of fun. Alright, that's the end of the questions for the tech talk. There wasn't a ton of them this week, but to be honest, it was that week before the update, wasn't it? So there wasn't really a lot going on. It was just kind of the graphical stuff, things moving around and going about. So do any of you guys in the live stream have any questions or thoughts you want to put in before we wrap this up, get into some Lukesy Luke? Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get in any. I wanted to get some caps kills and stuff for the battle pass mission. We haven't been able to do. Verstappen, yeah, Verstappen's won. Like, he's brought home the win. He had the most powerful car in the first half of the season, and that has brought him home. Nice to see the Mercedes doing well. I'm really looking forward to next year. It really seems like there's a lot of competition. I think we're going to be in for a really close one next year. I hope so. I really do. So yeah. Also, the CS2 major going on right now as well has been quite fun to follow. There's a lot of sporting things going on. I suppose everybody's trying to cram it in before December goes. Hey Justin, nice to see you. I've noticed that you can download the Leo 2A7 Putlos training area camo off the workshop. You can only buy it for the Leopard off the marketplace. What's the difference between them? So all of the Guardian Market camos originate on War Thunder Live. They're made from and by players, right? So that's where Guardian's pool of stuff comes from. The difference is if you download it off War Thunder Live and put it on your vehicle, only you can see it. Whereas if you get the marketplace camo, which is the one that's in the game, other people can see it too. So if you're only bothered about what the vehicle looks like, and you're only bothered about, you seeing it, you can just download it off War Thunder Live, and it's free. But if you want other people to see your drip, if you if you want other people to be like, wow, bro, look at that quad color. God, I'm hard right now. Like, then you can do that. But it's not really needed. What if the APCs could replace dead crew members and other tanks? It doesn't really make a lot of sense logically. Like, no, APCs aren't running around with a bunch of tank crew in them. But once again, what do you class as an APC? What is an APC in the game? Do you know anything about console to PC porting when it might be back? I don't control that. The person to talk to about that is Gromvoini, who's usually on the War Thunder forums. He's the guy who normally puts out the message about when it's going around. The M113? Well, all of those that we have in the game are A2 launchers. So. Do you think they felt pressured to release this update graphics because they promised it, despite it not being ready clearly? I think they couldn't get it working and just had to push it out half-baked. Yeah, definitely, Abby. Like, it was really funny when the community managers came out and said that everything was running on schedule, and it's like, look, I don't know what schedule you're running on, but it's obviously not like the standard one, right? So, of course, I feel like there's constant pressure, because they have these kind of release windows, and then if they don't hit the release window or something goes wrong, sometimes, yeah, you can put it in the next update, right? And that's okay. Sometimes you can't. and especially if it's like the main part of the update. And as we talked about with like the ray tracing stuff and the graphics stuff, They'd already announced it all. So if they run into problems after the fact, well, it's not great, is it? Like you're gonna have a real tough time being able to sort it out. So yeah, I think there's definitely pressure. This was the latest November update we have ever had in terms of War Thunder, and only by a few days. New Power was the other one, but that one was straight up like game defining as an update. So we've already had, you know, a bunch of other updates, and then we all know there's another update this year. So they can't really start working on a bunch of stuff until all this stuff is working, right? And I know they have like different people who work on the stuff, and you know, it's all about like making sure that all this stuff works together. But there has to have been pressure, surely. Like there has to have been. SBA getting cap reforce, so it's kind of like having cap point of company heroes. So you're gonna have to kill the reinforcements before you start to decap. In a way, yeah, like they could do that. I would be a little bit worried about it, but yeah, I think it would be fine. I don't think we need to change how capping works. I think capping's fine. Like I don't think capping's a huge issue. The only thing I have with capping, which I don't like on specific maps, like conquest maps, if we're gonna keep conquest maps in the game, which I think is bad, but let's just say that they do, what they should do is they should make it so caps are collective, just like they are in Naval. You know, like those like massive Naval maps, like the big sea maps, where what you have to do is you have to you know, have it, they're collective caps, meaning that if you have a specific amount, if you have more people in the zone than the enemy team, then you get what do you call it? You get to cap the zone. They should do that with conquest maps. I don't know why they don't. Hey Rejinx, nice to see you, man. Thank you for the subscription. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Lovely to see you as always. Hopefully you're doing good, brother. Hopefully life's alright. I know the Christmas period is pretty busy for you, so hopefully everything's been going good. Nice to see you, Hit Minion. Lovely to hear you home, man. Good stuff, brother. Well done. Well done for surviving again. Yeah, cap superiority. Like, if you have 5 people on the cap, and the enemy has 4 people on the cap, you should be able to cap the cap. Just do it on conquest modes. It makes the most sense, because a lot of these conquest modes, like, you just have people just stuck on caps, and they just can't do anything with it. And and then everybody just gets bombed. So like it's much better to set it up in a different. Okay, so that's the end of the tech talk. Hopefully we'll have a bit more to talk about next week with the event coming along and then a few other things going along. But if not, it's always nice to have a chat. Look after yourselves. Peace be with you. See you next time.